Okay, so imagine this. You wake up one morning, step outside, and your entire city is just gone. Not destroyed, not burned down, just empty. No people, no noise, no signs of struggle, just buildings and silence. That sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? But here's the wild part. This has actually happened multiple times. Throughout history, entire civilizations. We're talking millions of people just vanished. And to this day, we still don't fully know why. No goodbye note. No explanation. Just ruins left behind for the rest of us to scratch our heads at. Today, we're gonna talk about some of the most mind-blowing civilizations that disappeared. And trust me, the theories behind what happened are even crazier than you'd expect. So sit back, because this one's gonna be a ride. The Maya. Let's start with one of the most famous ones, the Maya. Now, if you've ever heard anything about ancient civilizations, chances are you've heard of the Maya, and for good reason. These guys were absolute geniuses. We're talking about a civilization that built massive pyramid cities in the middle of the jungle, with no metal tools, no wheels, and no horses. They had their own writing system, a calendar that was actually more accurate than the one we use today, and a level of knowledge in astronomy that honestly shouldn't have been possible for the time. At their peak, around 250 to 900 AD, the Maya Empire stretched across what's now Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. Millions of people, dozens of cities, a whole functioning world. And then, around 900 AD, something happened. Within just a few decades, city after city was abandoned. The kings were overthrown, the temples were left empty, people just left, and nobody told them to. So what happened? Historians have been arguing about this for years. Some say it was a massive drought, and there's actually pretty strong evidence for this. The region experienced back-to-back droughts that would have wiped out food supplies. No food, no civilization. Others say it was a combination of things. Warfare between city-states, a peasant revolt against corrupt rulers, breakdown of trade routes. Think of it like a perfect storm of disasters hitting all at once. But here's the thing, the Maya never fully disappeared. Millions of their descendants are still alive today, speaking Mayan languages, so it's less of a disappearance and more of a collapse. Still incredibly mysterious, but the people, they survived. Their civilization, though, that's another story. Indus Valley. Okay, next up, and this one is genuinely underrated, the Indus Valley civilization, also called the Harappan civilization. Here's some context. At its peak, around 2500 BC, the Indus Valley civilization was actually larger than both ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. We're talking about an empire that stretched across parts of modern-day India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, with a population of up to 5 million people. 5 million in 2500 BC. That's insane. And they weren't just large, they were advanced. They had planned cities with straight streets, a sophisticated sewage system, standardized weights and measurements, and multi-story buildings. They were basically doing urban planning thousands of years before anyone else thought it was a good idea. But then, around 1900 BC, the whole thing just falls apart. People abandon the cities and migrate away. And here's the maddening part. We still can't fully read their writing. Their script has never been decoded. So whatever records they kept, whatever they were trying to say, we can't understand it. Scientists now believe the monsoon system that fed their agriculture basically stopped working for almost 200 years. No rain, no crops, no civilization. Some also point to earthquakes, and possibly outbreaks of disease like malaria or cholera. But honestly, without being able to read what they wrote, we might never know the full story. And that's what makes it so haunting. Rapa Nui. Now let's talk about something you've definitely seen pictures of. Easter Island. You know, those giant stone heads in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that look like they're just standing there judging you. Fun fact, by the way, those aren't just heads. They actually have full bodies buried underground. We only found that out relatively recently. The statues go deep. Like, really deep. Anyway, The civilization that built these, called the Rapa Nui, settled on this tiny, incredibly remote island around 700 to 900 AD. At their peak, the island had maybe 15,000 people living on it, which sounds small, but for an island in the middle of nowhere, that's a lot. And these guys were obsessed with building those giant statues, which, respect honestly, dedication. But here's where it gets dark. To move those massive statues around the island, they used wooden sledges, which meant they needed trees. A lot of trees, and scientists have found evidence that the Rapa Nui basically cut down every single tree on the island. Every single one. No trees meant no canoes meant no fishing meant no food. And then rats, who had stowed away on their boats when they first arrived, ate the remaining tree seeds so nothing could grow back. It was basically a slow-motion ecological disaster. The population crashed. By the time Europeans arrived in 1722, only about 2,000 to 3,000 people were left. And then the Europeans made things even worse, bringing diseases and eventually slave raids that wiped out even more of the population. At its lowest point, Easter Island had fewer than 100 people left. A civilization that once carved giant monuments, reduced to almost nothing. The Anasazi? Okay, one more. And this one is genuinely eerie. The Anasazi. Or as their descendants prefer to call them, the Ancestral Puebloans. These were the people who built incredible cities carved directly into cliffs. We're talking multi-story apartment complexes built into the sides of canyon walls in places like Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. Some of these cliff dwellings had hundreds of rooms, built into solid rock, hundreds of years before modern construction equipment. And then, around the late 1200s, they just walked away, left everything behind. Pottery, tools, food storage, just sitting there, untouched. The leading theory is a prolonged drought that made farming impossible, but some researchers also point to evidence of warfare. And, in a few sites, there are signs of something even darker, like evidence of violence and possibly cannibalism, which suggests things got really desperate really fast. The weird thing is, we don't even know what they called themselves. The name Anasazi comes from the Navajo language and means ancient enemies. Their real name? Lost to history. Many Native American tribes today, like the Hopi and Zuni, consider themselves direct descendants of the Ancestral Puebloans. So again, the people adapted and survived, but the civilization itself? Gone. So here's what I find so fascinating about all of this. These weren't small, primitive groups of people. These were massive, intelligent, complex societies. They had art, architecture, science, trade, politics, full civilizations, and they all fell apart. Some from climate change, some from resource depletion, some from internal collapse, some from a combination of everything. And in most cases, despite all our modern technology and archaeology, we still don't have complete answers. Which makes you wonder, what will future civilizations think when they dig up our ruins? What story will our leftovers tell? Something to think about. Anyway, if you made it this far, you're awesome. Drop a comment below. Which of these civilizations do you think had the most mysterious disappearance? I genuinely love to know what you think. And if you want more videos like this, hit subscribe, because we've got a lot more history, mysteries, and mind-blowing facts coming your way. See you in the next one.